Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast, Inspiring Boys, Empowering Fathers, and Transforming Lives. This is our first podcast, and we want to say hello and welcome you to our podcast. And Jim, over to you.
Hello, Linda. I'm delighted to be here and to be involved in this, and I think we're in for a lot of fun. And anyone watching this, hey, you're going to have fun too. I hope you enjoy it. Linda.
Okay, we hope so. So today we're just going to talk about what we're going to do on our podcast. So our plan, what we're going to do, who we are, that sort of thing. So we are part of the Canadian Centre for Men and Families. For those of you that aren't aware of the Canadian Centre for Men and Families, it's a hub for boys, men, fathers, families, and we work towards having a healthy future for men and families. And of course, when men succeed, we all succeed. CCMF offers services for counseling on male suicide, empowering fathers, as we're doing here, and also empowering fathers that are undergoing separation and divorce, um, and supporting men in various male-centered crises. We have two shelters that we have opened, one in Toronto, and we just opened a new one in November in Calgary. So we're the only group that has a shelter, emergency shelter for men and families in Canada. So just a little bit about us. So my name's Lynda Yardley, and I'm a retired CPA. I used to be a manager of analytics and finance as part of our project management team. I have 5 guys working for me, 4 of which were dads. Um, I'm a mom. I have one son who's now a teacher that I'm very proud of. I was separated and I was a single mom for a period of time as well, but now I'm married and I have a stepson who works in graphic arts. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim and let him introduce himself.
Right. Thank you very much, Linda. Um, I'm I've been involved in the world of education for virtually all my adult life. And interestingly enough, I've had just about every job that exists in education. I also come at this from my background as a father of 5 children, 3 of whom are boys, and by now a number of grandchildren, and dare I say it, I even have a few great-grandchildren. Um, However, I'm happy to be involved in this. I think this is wonderful. I think this is a great opportunity. And boy, I encourage everybody who's watching this to spread the word. Let's get involved. Let's get involved in this. I think this is going to be really positive. And Linda.
Thanks, Jim. For those of you who haven't met Jim, Jim is a wealth of knowledge. Jim's written a book. Rescuing Our Underachieving Sons, you can find it. It's available. But this podcast, Jim will share a lot of those data background tips. So yeah, so let's dig in. So why are we here? We're here to help dads. And when we talk about dads, we talk about dads. It could be granddads, could be uncles, nephews. It could be a family friend who's supporting a young boy, and maybe even single moms that have a son. Who knows? But we're here to help dads and dads that maybe are in a father role. So that's what we're here for, to raise awareness of what's happening and what can be done about it. So each week, our podcast, we're going to present a current topic that affects fathers and sons. We'll give you different perspectives. Jim, like I mentioned, has a lot of knowledge. Jim will tell us about his experiences. We'll possibly have guests, and we want to make it interactive. So we want to hear from you, right? We're here for dads. So we don't want to just talk to you. We want to have fathers' perspectives, dads that are facing issues right now. Maybe dads have faced similar issues and they have some advice to give to other dads. That's why we're here. It's all about you and an interaction with dads out there. So we believe healthy fathers make healthy families and they create healthy communities. So, some of you out there might be saying, how do you know boys are struggling? I don't think boys are struggling. And they really are. On average, boys are performing worse than girls in school. And we're noticing that in several areas. Jim, where would you say we're seeing those sort of things?
Well, it's a we see it we see it right now with the testing that we do in Ontario province wide with students in grade 3, um, looking at their English usage and math scores, and boys are scoring lower than girls, and it's true both in language and also in math. And if the situation were reversed, uh, there would be a great deal of outcry about this, about how we aren't addressing girls. Well, we may wait a long time, I'm sorry to say, before we get much government activity on this, or even school board activity on this. But the, we're here to help you take a look at things like this and say, okay, how can I, as a dad, help my son to do better? So we look at some on the slide here. We're looking at some lower academic performance. Uh, we've got boys more often being identified as having learning disabilities, and I might add those may or may not be real, but their children are being identified with that. Uh, Boys are more likely to be suspended from school. They're more likely to drop out of school. They're less likely than girls to get a place in post-secondary education. And this is a big change from, say, 20 years ago, 10 years ago even. And they're less likely to enter into the professions. Now, I'm not downplaying a lot of other jobs that people might have, but uh, professions pay well. They have lots of job security, and we've got more girls going into that than we have boys. Lynda.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I have a few stats here for some of you that might be interested. If you're in Ontario, you know that they do what they call EQAO testing in grade 3, and girls outperform boys by 8 to 10% in reading and 11 to 13% in writing. That's pretty significant, I would think. And that was that was recently done, 2014 to 2019, and it's repeated again in grade 6. Um, with girls outperforming boys by 8 to 10 percentage points in reading and 13 to 17 in writing. So it's a big issue. The other thing is, you were mentioning, Jim, about professions. Um, having that high school diploma, and there's again more girls graduating than boys. We need that in the trades, right? Not just in professions. Like if boys want to go on into the trades, and there's a real demand today for trades in Canada, would they need that in those types of jobs too, do you think?
Well, you see, in order to in order to get into the trades in the old days, you did an apprenticeship and so on. But now, getting into the trades, you need a secondary school a graduation diploma, and in all probability, you're going to find out that you have to take courses at the college level. So we need to be concerned about the fact that we can't have boys quitting school before they complete secondary school, and they can't quit and say, I don't ever want to go back to school again. The reality is they're going to have to if they want to deal with being able to work in the trades. It's important. And if you want a future in that, it's even more important because we're now going more and more into a knowledge-based economy. And that doesn't mean the trades are not important, but it does tell us that you have to have some academic background and you have to be a good problem solver. Hopefully that helps, dads. I'm speaking as a dad, incidentally. 3 times over.
Yes, well, that's I hope we've convinced you that their boys are struggling, and why we want to talk about it. And some of you dads out there, you may notice this with your sons, things that are happening in your own home, and we want to hear from you about those types of things and what you're doing about it, and how we can help you. So, we talk about this, Jim, and I don't know what are the things that would prevent us from helping boys? Why are boys behind? What types of obstacles, so to say, are in their way? Like, is it something parents are doing?
Well,
or
three of the big items that we need to look at, and you and I will look at, and anyone else who's interested will look at. We need to look at things we're doing as parents, uh, subconsciously, if you'd like. We don't even think about it, but things we're doing as parents that may, in fact, encourage boys to deal better with the academics, and things that we do that may, in fact, handicap our boys. Not on purpose, just we just don't realize that this is going to happen. So we will be dealing with, in future episodes, we will be dealing with some things that parents do that may, in fact, handicap their own sons, and some things that dads can do, in fact, to advantage their boys. And I think it's very important. And then, of course, we're dealing with wider societal influences because, it's a tough time to be a boy. It really is. There's a great deal of focus on how do we help girls to succeed, and how do we put value on girls and so on. We don't have that in large measure dealing with boys, and the school system is part of it, but it's not the only one. There are other societal factors we need to look at, and how we help our sons to cope with this type of problem that they're dealing with. And of course, the obvious one there at the end is the education system. And we need to look at what the education system is doing. Again, I'm not saying that's some kind of subversive plot here, but the point is that we are dealing with the realities that exist in the education system. And we also have to look at how I, as a dad, can help in my case, three sons, um, to succeed and cope with the educational system, given the fact that boys are at a big disadvantage in terms of how the education system works. So does that help at all there, Lynda?
yeah, those are great points, Jim. And I think one thing that does impact today that hasn't really in the past is the influence of digital and the internet and video games. And now, nothing wrong with video games. This isn't going to be a podcast about those nasty video games. What it is, it's about how long you spend on them, and what happens in the book that Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. He wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, and in there he has a chapter on boys and how video games and the internet are affecting boys and what it's doing to them. So, for example, boys used to, and Jim, you would know this even more so than me, having three boys. Boys used to engage in, I don't know, what do you call it, rough and tumble play. They do physical activities. They're wrestling with each other and doing competitive games. And this helps them develop resilience and confidence and social skills. Now, the problem is with online gaming, a lot of the gaming is one-on-one, the boy with the game, and there's no physical or face-to-face interaction. So they don't get that opportunity to kind of develop these skills that are important. So that's one problem when you're spending way too much time on video games and you get kind of lost in them. And there's also online bullying and lots of things. And we'll have a podcast on that. And some of it will rely on what Jonathan Haidt had to say on that. So lots of
Very,
things.
very, very good. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was,
Yep,
there's so much we could talk about.
that's
So,
right.
and yeah, I just wanted to mention that in particular because I know that's on people's minds. So, maybe you say, why does it matter? Why does it matter? My son's growing up and everything's fine and everybody else is watching video games. Everybody else has cell phones. You know, my son's doing okay in school, isn't he? Like, does it really matter? Um, so there's a lot of consequences that impact, getting the education and being able to read and doing all those things. And one of them, of course, is academic that we've talked about. Jim, do you have any other consequences that would impact boys if we don't try and solve this problem?
If we don't do something, there are consequences of not dealing with the problems that exist, and we can we can say, oh, everything's okay, don't need to worry about it. Yes, you do need to worry about it because these boys are the future, and they're our children. We've got to be concerned about what's happening to our children in the long run. So, Lynda, you mentioned academic. Well, it also has all kinds of economic problems. For example, uh, as I had mentioned earlier about if you go into one of the professions, that's definitely to your economic advantage. And a second half of that is when we start dealing with unemployment and finding jobs and so on. So there are issues around that. There are economic issues. Again, I'm not saying that people shouldn't go into the trades at all, but I think we need to recognize that if we're going to go into the trades, we've got to go into it fully equipped. And that means academically equipped and able to learn and able to engage in critical thinking. There are social issues around this. One of the consequences of not dealing with those issues that we mentioned in the previous slide. There are social issues in terms of how we get on with people, um, what happens to us in terms of the friends we create and who our peers are. There are professional issues. Um, the issues that we get into in terms of joining the professions. And one of the really interesting thing under professionals is there was a day when uh, virtually the only people who went into uh, veterinary medicine were men. And now what's happening increasingly is the only people going into veterinary medicine are women. And that has some major problems because while it's fine, I can get my cat taken care of. And if it's a woman or a man, it's not really important. But when we start getting it into rural areas and we start talking about birthing cats and so on, it becomes a little more important that more men be involved in this than are. And the number of men going into veterinary medicine is going down. It's going down steadily. There are some personal issues, and Lynda, you will be conscious of that as a mom and having dealt with your son, and he's not 8 years old. He's an adult now, and
Yeah.
he's performing accordingly. But there are personal issues, and of course, there's the issue of fairness. So, Lynda, offer some thoughts on that one, on those two.
Yeah, if I think for boys, from a female perspective, and according to the statistics, women today are looking for someone that can be a partner in raising their children, and they're usually looking for someone who has that education or at least has a job that can help and support the family. That's just part of the
Yeah.
role of being a dad. And and so it's important to have that available to boys and to men as they grow into various professions or trades. It has personal consequences and of course that has economic consequences. And having that ability, I think it helps, when you're in a job, you're interacting with people. Like I talked about a few minutes ago, how the internet, with boys, it applies to girls too, but boys tend to, with a focus on video games, they don't have that interaction. And when you're dealing with on a personal, like making friends with people, being in a relationship with someone, having those skills as you go along, developing, those social skills, being able to interact with people and dealing with things that come up on a regular basis, as we know, conflict or competition. And as you grow up and you do those things, it's much easier as an adult. So it's with those things. So yeah, it affects all areas of life.
I used to teach a course um, uh, a few years ago, and one of the topics in it was uh, what was known as the marriage market, and that's dealing with social and personal, if you'd like. And so I'm hoping that people will follow this series that we're doing because I just can't wait to tell you about the marriage market. I'm not
Ah,
telling you, I'm dangling that. Marriage market. I love
okay. Wow. Lots you got me on that one. We want to hear about that,
it.
Jim. So yes, so join us for lots of interesting topics.
Yeah.
So I guess the other topic that impacts boys, of course, is child rearing practices. It's really important that boys have a father or a father role model. Um, that can be empowered, to help boys, help inspire them. It's really important. Just like women need female role models, men need male role models. And it's important in how you bring up your children. Um, and so we're going to talk about a lot of the podcast will also be on what can I do as a dad? How can I help my son? What are the things, how empower me to help my son? So, you know, there's lots of examples and suggestions we're going to give you. Jim, I think one of the important ones I believe that you had read some research on and had some experience in is, what's the most important thing to ask your son? What sort of things? What's the number one thing that's important for boys? What do you think?
Well, this example that we're going to talk about here for a minute or two, we're going to talk about a lot more when we start to proceed through the series we're doing here. But an example of something that makes a significant difference, it takes very little work, no cost, and yet gives good results. Research out of Simon Fraser University on this topic showed a 30% improvement on average, 30% improvement in
Wow.
terms of children's scores um, uh, following this action by parents. So a simple one is that you ask your son at the end of each day to tell you, what did you learn today that you think is important, something that's going to stay with you. Now, I guarantee you that your child is going to say nothing, but you have to stick with it. And after you've done it for a number of days, your son will start to think these things over and think about what he did learn during the day or activities involved during the day. And he will tell you something that happened during the course of the day, usually school items, that he thinks is important, something that will stay with him. And uh, there are a lot of learning theories involved in this, but the practical side of it is it really does make a difference. And I personally did use this, besides with my own children, I did use this when I worked with a group of secondary school children who were literally school phobic. They were in secondary school, they couldn't read or write, and they had absolutely no interest. The thing that they were best at was getting kicked out of class. And each day we met and we talked about, okay, we need to look at what our goals are for the day. And at the end of the day, they were expected to share among themselves and with me something that they learned today that they thought was of significant value. And it made a big difference for these children. Now, these were secondary school children. They could not read or write. And they now send me Facebook messages where they tell me what they're up to. And one is a teacher, um, several uh, work as mechanics, um, and all of them are employed, and they're able to write messages, take messages back. They've learned all of these things, and they couldn't do any of them in secondary school. And I'm not overstating it. Most of them couldn't even read the 5 most common words in English. So they've made a big difference. And part of it, not all of it, but part of it came from the fact that they set goals for themselves, and then at the end of the day, they had to think, what happened? What did I learn today that's of value? So I throw that out, and I encourage people to come back, because this is an example that we're going to use, a type of example of what we're going to use, and it's easy to do. It costs nothing, and it only takes a few minutes. So it's not difficult. And I might add, if you don't have to have daily access to your son, it's something that you can do over the telephone. It's simple as that. Something you can do over the telephone or on the internet. You can do it by email even. So Lynda, I think that's a concrete example of what people can see the value of joining us for these sessions as
Mhm.
we go. They may have
That's
better
that's
ideas than us anyway.
That's fascinating. Really, it's hard to believe that something simple like that. Because I think as a parent, we've all done that. Said, "Hey, what did you learn today?" Nothing. We all get that nothing sort of reaction, and it's interesting to learn if you just be persistent. it does make a difference. Yeah, so looking forward to our podcast and on that one and other tips that and Jim is just like a wealth of knowledge here. I call him my library because he's not just a guy who's written a book. He's lived these things. He's gone out and helped so many men and boys out there. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more of those stories, Jim.
Thank you.
And things, and they're not just stories. They're things we're going to take away from, from that and share them with you. And we want to hear back from you. Try it out with your sons, and send us an email. Tell us, like, how did it work? Did it work for you? What happened? And it takes time. I mean, patient, you're going to get the nothing response for a while, but be patient and keep going. I think that's what I would say about that one. But join us for that podcast, and Jim will give us more exciting exciting things that happened when he tried those various things out. I
So
guess another. Sorry, go
we've
ahead.
talked we've talked a little bit. Sorry, run right over here, Lynda.
Yep.
We've talked a little bit about the parental side of this. So now we need to look at society's contribution to this. Sorry, Lynda, turn it back to you.
Oh, no problem. Like it's just one of the three areas that we mentioned that have an impact on boys and why we're where we are. Um, and of course, part of it is the social influences. So today, and this kind of the social influences kind of go along with peer pressure. Boys are, boys seen reading or studying or doing homework are, I think they get ridiculed, right? They get made fun of. Oh, that's what girls do. And the reason we bring this up, and I think it's been common for a long time, but what happens is boys eventually give up and they stop trying and they don't do their homework and they don't pay attention and they lose interest in reading. And that's a problem because they end up not succeeding at any other things because the reading is so important and learning is so important to help them, as we've shown and we've talked about carrying on in their life and having a big, big impact. So, we'll talk about that. And some of them is just giving them something really fascinating to read. And we'll have some suggestions for books that they can read as when we get to that particular topic. Um, Jim, do you have anything to add about what other things affect the society is causing this?
Well, if you happen to look at the slide, you'll see that there are a number of areas there that are of interest, and one of the is peer pressure, and that is if your son is with a group of boys that are academically inclined and see a value in school, your son's likely to take on that as well. On the other hand, if your son is in with a group of boys that say, "Oh, school's for girls," you may have difficulty, and that's something you need to be aware of. And of course, we will have some ideas on what you can do. And dads who contribute to what we're doing, contribute to our presentations. I'm sure they will have ideas that we can follow. And of course, one of the biggies is government inaction. Lots of government action about, gee, poor girls in the 1980s and 90s and so on, and what can we do about it? Less interest in how can we help boys to do better, to be better likely to reach their potential. And of course, that's what this is about. We want people to maximize their abilities and reach the potential, what they're capable of. So we're encouraging you, and hopefully you're going to encourage us and encourage each other. So we'll look forward to future sessions on this. Rolling along, Lynda.
Okay. So just again, little summary, little tidbit of what you can expect in some future podcasts. What can you do? What can men do, or fathers or dads, to help your sons? Well, one is be a role model, and I think that's really important. Some of our ideas of what a man should be is kind of slipped into the background, but be a role model for your son. Read to your son and listen to your son read. That's really important. We're going to have at least one or two podcasts on reading and literacy. So you want to come back for that. You know, let your son see you reading, show him, be a role model in that way. And stay in touch with his teacher. Find out. We're going to have a session on that as well. How do you talk to the teacher? Because, you know your son and your teacher knows what he wants to teach, but the two of you together, it's the teacher and the father and the parents that have to work together to help their son. It's important.
Yeah, it's critical. And uh, I can I can speak as someone who's taught, believe it or not, who's taught everything from junior kindergarten to graduate school at university and everything in between. Um, it really is important that we recognize that the teacher has skills in teaching, but nobody knows your children, nobody knows your son as well as you do. And so the two, teacher and parent in this case, need to get together to work together to help this young man to succeed. You're on, Lynda.
Okay, so what's next? We want you to come back. And like we mentioned, lots of things we're going to talk about. What's next is probably we're going to talk about parenting practices, some ideas that can help you with your sons. We're planning to have regular podcasts and to discuss these topics and many more in a lot more detail. We have a website that's going to be part of the CCMF website. So you can go there and learn about the various things we're going to talk about. We'll update that as we go along as well. You can find more information on there too. And we want to talk to fathers and share ideas. So tell us what you want to hear. What are the things you're struggling with your son? Or if you're a dad and you struggled and this worked, send us an email. Tell us what did work. And so we can share that with other dads. This is about fathers sharing things that work, sharing problems, and helping each other with whatever the issues are that you're dealing with. And we know based on the conversation we just had, there's lots of things that can impact boys out there. So there's our website, inspireboys@menandfamilies.org. It's on the screen there. We'd love to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to find out what's happening. We want to try and find ways to help you.
So we encourage you to send us messages, and in as much as it's possible, we certainly will respond, and we will listen to what you have to say. So, and we'll try to use that and incorporate that in future broadcasts.
Yeah, we may. Do you think we should have some dads on the podcast and talk to us?
I think that's
Some...
an excellent idea. Right at the moment, you see the two of us on your screen, I think, and it'd be better if we had three or four people up here, and dads particularly, or people who have specific expertise in things that we may want to talk about. But we want to get dads involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now, here, what's next? And I like it.
So
Go for
how
it,
can,
Lynda.
okay, how can you help us help you? We're going to have a survey. It's been sent out after this podcast. We want to hear from you. We'd appreciate if you could fill out this survey and send it back. If you didn't get a copy, send us an email and we'll be happy to send it. And it'll be anonymous. We can keep it anonymous. We won't share it with anyone. It's more about what do you want to hear, and just take a few minutes to complete it. Well, I don't know. Maybe we should do a survey after each podcast. Jim, what do you think? We want to hear from, well, it could be a survey. We want emails. We want to hear from you.
We'll do several, I think we'll do several surveys. Whether we do one each time remains to be seen, but we will do a number of them during the series. And these surveys will not be long, extensive things that take half an hour to. This will be they're brief, they're to the point, and they're collecting information that we need to do a better job. So if you're already saying I don't need any more surveys, well, this will be brief and it will be useful and valuable. And we can hit them with the last line there, Lynda.
So we want to hear from you so we can empower fathers to inspire their sons and transform lives.
I like it.
Bye for now, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye. And look forward to dealing with you as we go along. Lynda, super stuff. I really like you, Lynda. Keep it up.
Well, Jim, you're a great wealth of knowledge, and we want to hear from you and we want to hear about all your experiences. So, yeah, until next time, Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.